Welcome back to Average Guys. I lose track of where we're at. I think episode 11 now. I think we're on episode 11. All I know is college football is really getting a shakedown right now. What is going on in the world of college football right now?
4 top 10 teams go down.
Utah, Baylor, LSU, and Stanford all lost yesterday. I don't think anyone could have predicted all 4 of those teams were going to lose in the same
Maybe
week.
that, 1 or 2 might, but not all 4 of them. The top 5 teams, fortunately, all won.
Yep.
So it was 4 teams that were between 6 and 10, but I don't know.
It's not so.
Pac-12, better luck
Pac-12
next
done.
year. Better luck next year. I guess.
Pac-12's done. Even if Stanford beats Notre Dame, they're still a 2-loss team. They're not going to throw any 2-loss teams in the Pac-12. Now, the Pac-12 is still an interesting conference to see who's going to be in the championship game, who's going to win, because now Washington State has a chance. They beat UCLA last night. It's still up in the air. No one
USC
knows.
probably has a chance.
USC 7-3. They have a shot. So there's so much that can happen in the Pac-12, but they're out of the playoff picture. They don't have a shot.
I really don't think so. There could be, potentially, either a 1-loss Big 12 champ in the playoff, or maybe a 2-loss team slides in with how much craziness has been going on.
But here's the problem.
I think the Pac-12's out.
Here's the problem with the Big 12 too. He says Big 12 champ. They don't have a championship game, so even if you have everybody with 1 loss, which I guess you're gonna have some teams with 2 losses, but if you have the top 2 teams, let's say Oklahoma State played last game of the season. Oklahoma State's 10-0 right now. Even if Oklahoma State has to win out, I think if Oklahoma, even if they beat Oklahoma State last game of the season, I still don't think a 1-loss Big 12 team is going to get in unless a lot of teams up in the top 5 or 6 lose.
Yeah, and especially, I was reading something with Oklahoma, they lost to Texas. So if it came down to Oklahoma and Notre Dame killed Texas.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma got killed by Texas.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting in the Big 12 to see what happens because all these
they're
teams
really
they still play each
hoping that Notre Dame either loses to Boston College this week or that they lose to Stanford.
Yeah, and I don't think TCU or Baylor has a chance. One of them's going to have 2 losses by the end of the season. They play each other. Baylor plays at Oklahoma State this weekend. I don't think the Big 12 has a chance unless Oklahoma State wins out. I think that's their only shot at getting in.
Okay, my question to you then is, if Pac-12's out and Big 12's out, who's in?
Well, you still have the Big Ten.
Okay.
You got Ohio State. So Ohio State, they have to win out, and they have to win the championship game against Iowa.
Sure.
Iowa, if you ask me, I was going to win out. No, they're not, because they're going to lose to Nebraska. But if they beat Nebraska, if they beat us in 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, they're going to the Big Ten championship already, either way. And they play Ohio State. Now, will they even play Ohio State? Because Michigan State and Ohio State play this weekend, and then Ohio State plays Michigan. So they got 2 tough games back-to-back against 2 Big Ten opponents where those are good rivalry games. They still might have 1 or 2 losses on the season and not make the championship game. So it could be Iowa and Michigan State in the championship game.
Yeah, and I guess Notre Dame's still in the picture, so that cancels out a Power 5 conference. But if they were to lose, then
If Notre Dame loses to Stanford,
who the heck goes?
here's what happens. If Notre Dame loses to Stanford, I think you're going to throw in a possible 1-loss Oklahoma, unless they lose to Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State is going to jump in there if they're undefeated, or even a 1-loss Big 12 team. I think they might do it if that happens. But then, depending on TCU Baylor, how they do, whoever wins that matchup, if there's only 1 loss between one of those 2 teams, will they jump in there? Depending on what happens with all these other teams ahead of them, there's still so many different scenarios you can throw in. The ACC.
Does Houston jump in?
Houston's got a chance. They're in the AP.
They could, I guess.
In the AP, they're number 13, but they're 10-0.
Probably actually hurt.
If they go 12-0 on the season,
Probably hurt actually that Temple lost.
mm-hmm.
It probably hurt them actually because they probably need as many teams in the AAC ranked or than not, and that probably hurt them a little bit. They're going to be They're probably going to end up undefeated. They'll actually be 13-0 because I think they have a conference championship game.
There you go. So potentially 13-0. Can you throw them in the mix? I think it depends on what happens with the other teams. In the ACC, you got.
I don't think the committee will do it.
I don't think they will either. I think it's a shame, but look at what they did with Boise State after so many years of them being so good and being undefeated. They never got that big shot.
Even when they were undefeated, they never got.
They never
a
got
shot.
it. So I don't think, but it's different time now with the playoff committee making the picks instead of the computer.
I don't
doing it.
think they've had enough big wins to jump them up there, but
I
I don't
don't
know. I
think they
guess
will.
crazier things have happened.
But in the ACC, you got Clemson, who's still undefeated. They'll stay number one. And you got North Carolina. They're going to play each other. Excuse me. They're going to play each other in the ACC championship game. North Carolina, once again, we talked last week. They were, what, 23?
First, yeah, they were 23.
23 in the college football playoff last week, which I think they disservice. Now they won again. Now they're 9-1. I think they should jump into the top 10, especially with the other 4 teams that lost in the top 10. I think North Carolina has to be up there because they're going to play Clemson in the ACC championship.
The reason
game.
I agree, even though I'm not sure that you should really jump somebody that high, but the reason why I agree, they shouldn't have been that low in the first place.
No.
And secondly, with all those teams losing, the teams that should be in the top 10 are teams that have a legitimate chance of making it to the playoff, which they will. They are.
Yeah,
They're legitimate.
They win. They win
chance.
the ACC. They're in.
They'll have one
you ask me,
loss.
Clemson's
Most
out.
likely, they'll have one loss playing Clemson in the ACC championship with a playoff spot on the line. That'd be my guess.
That I think it's going to be exactly what's going to happen. So the ACC, they still have a chance to get. They're going to have one team in, if you ask me. They're going to have one for sure. SEC, you got Alabama is going to play Florida in the SEC championship game. So Florida, if they beat Alabama in the championship game, I think Florida jumps in.
Florida should jump in, I would guess.
I don't want Bama there. So
My
I really hope
fear-
Florida wins.
My fear is that there's going to be so many teams right outside of that 4th spot that lose that Florida beats Alabama and Alabama squeaks in with the 4th spot.
I don't think that's possible. I know they love Alabama, but a 2-loss Alabama.
I agree. I don't
Not.
think that they should. I don't want to, but
There won't be.
they
There won't
love
be a
them so
2-loss
much.
team. There won't be a 2-loss team in the playoff. Alabama will not make it if they lose to Florida, but they got to lose to Florida in the SEC championship. So I think SEC's got a team in. I think ACC's going to have a team in. Big Ten's going to have a team in, and then I think you're going to have either Notre Dame or a Big 12 team. Big 12 team, if you ask me, is going to be either Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. Whoever wins that game. But Oklahoma State, their schedule's been kind of mediocre, and they only beat K-State by 2. They beat Iowa State by 4, and they were trailing. They had to come back from behind.
They were down
to
the
win
whole
that
game. They were down the whole game.
They didn't look that good. So, I mean, Oklahoma State in the AP poll, they jumped Notre Dame at number 4 in the AP. I think it's because they're 10-0 record, but they got some tough games coming up against Baylor this weekend. I can't remember who they play right after Baylor, but then they got Oklahoma, and I believe they play that one at home.
That's all they have left. They only have 2 games left.
Yeah, so 2 more games. So
they have Baylor and Oklahoma, 2 other best teams in the Big 12.
So that's really going to show what they're made of. If they win those 2 games, I think you put Oklahoma State in the playoff. And
For sure.
Depending on what else happens.
Whether or not they win those games.
Depending on what happens in the ACC, the Big Ten, and the SEC, I'm sorry, Notre Dame, but if Oklahoma State goes undefeated, you're getting left out because you're what should have been big wins, and you still have Stanford to play. But I mean, USC's 7-3, but that's not really that great. Pitt's 7-3, Navy's 8-1, and Temple's 8-2. So really, your best win on the season is Navy, and your loss is to the number 1 team in the country. So you kind of have 2 conflicting arguments.
It was kind of interesting because last week everything went in Notre Dame's favor.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that they had beat on their schedule pretty much won, like, big or won in a good way. And then this week was kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Temple lost by 21 points. And if you remember correctly, Notre Dame was actually losing to them with like a couple minutes left in the game. Stanford lost, and they needed Stanford to be pretty high up there when they play at the end of the year.
And with the Pac-12 being out of the picture for the championship now, or the top 4 playoff spots, I mean, that USC, no matter what happens with them the rest of the season, the Pac-12 kind of looks like, oh, we just beat each other up now.
Correct. I will say that, I mean, Notre Dame's lucky that the Pac-12 did kind of take themselves out of contention, which we've said all year that we thought they would. They were all going to beat each other up. I knew it was going to happen.
Yep.
Every Thursday night,
every
or
super late
Saturday night. That's exactly.
I was up till 1:30 last night.
I did not. I was not. I went to bed like really early last night. they're lucky that the Pac-12 champs out, and they're actually lucky that Baylor lost last night.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a couple of things went their way, a couple of things didn't. I still think that they've got to beat Stanford and hope that some things shake.
To me,
shake
not
out
just
in their
beat
favor.
Stanford. They have to win. They have to win big.
I would say that's probably true.
Because if they only beat Stanford by 3, 7, 10, I think that hurts them. Because Stanford being now an 8-2 team, they have to win convincingly. Over.
It'll be interesting to see how
Stanford.
far Stanford drops. They lost by 2 points.
They're at
But
15 in the AP.
Oregon will probably slide into the top 25.
But
I'm gonna guess.
Oregon kind of sucks.
I'm not disagreeing.
What's their record? Do you know?
7-3.
They
But
might. I know they still have Ole Miss in the top 25 in the AP, which SEC love there, but
it's only because they beat Alabama and it's garbage.
yeah, and that's the thing too. You look at, once again, we talked about last week, North Carolina's 1 loss, first game of the season against South Carolina. Alabama's 1 loss, third game of the season against
Yeah, and
7-3.
and we're talking about Notre Dame, but in actuality, they have a better loss than Alabama does. But
Yeah.
Alabama's not going to go anywhere. They have them at 2. They're not going to drop them.
Yeah, Alabama dropped to 13, and then they won their next week and they jumped up to 8. I mean,
It's kind of the same thing that happened in Michigan State.
yeah. So it's shocking right now. Michigan State's still in the top 10, so they lost
Shoot,
to a 3-6
Michigan
Nebraska.
State probably potentially still has an outside chance at making it to the playoff.
They beat Ohio
They beat Ohio State this
next week.
Then they play Penn State.
Yeah.
I know Penn State's not, anything great.
Penn State's
but
not terrible, though.
They're not terrible. And
It's
then
still
they
Big
turn
Ten
around
matchup.
and play potentially an Iowa team that's undefeated
And possibly in the top
in
4.
the top 4 and beat them. I don't know.
There's still a lot of potentials out there. There's really no dead set, this team's going to make it in, because if you look at what was top 4
There's-
last week,
yeah, no.
all those top 4 teams still have tough matchups coming up.
There's no automatic.
There's no definitive.
I would imagine. I would think.
And I think that's what's been so enjoyable about this year in college football is the unknown, especially moving forward the next 3 weeks. It's anybody's game.
There's only 5 undefeated teams left.
Yeah, you got Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Iowa, and Houston are the only undefeated teams.
If you asked me at the beginning of the before the season started, going into week 11, that there would be 5 undefeated teams, name them.
No, I wouldn't even put it.
I wouldn't have even put Clemson in there probably.
I don't even know if I would have put any team in there.
I don't know that I would have put Ohio State in there.
No.
I might have because they had such good quarterbacks.
But after the first 3 weeks, you probably would have said no way they're going on.
No, Oklahoma State I would not.
I would have maybe said Oklahoma, but
Yeah.
9-1.
Iowa, I probably would have said not, unless I looked at some of the team's records, and then I don't mean Houston. That's way out there.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have imagined that, but
The outside looking in right now, to me, outside looking in, for sure, is still Baylor TCU, the winner of that game. Depending on what happens this weekend, but I think Oklahoma is on the outside looking in. They have to beat Oklahoma State. North Carolina's on the outside looking in. They have to win the ACC. Florida's on the outside looking in. They have to win the SEC.
they're already in the SEC championship.
But they have to
game.
win to get into the playoff. So they're on the outside looking in to get into the playoff spot.
Committee's real big on the conference champion.
And I think Notre Dame's on the outside looking in, because they have, if you have Big 12 champ, outright champion Oklahoma State, you have the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 10. I think Notre Dame gets pushed out to number 5, even if they stay undefeated.
I feel, yeah, I see what you're saying.
And I kind of feel bad for them personally,
Yeah.
because they've had a hell of a good
And
season.
I feel bad with backups. I mean,
Yeah.
that
With so many
freshman
injuries.
running back had an awesome game yesterday. What I kind of feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for the Big 12. I don't know what to think, because it actually is like a one true champion, because every team plays every other team in the conference.
Mhm.
So when that doesn't happen in any other conference.
No.
You don't play every team in your conference, except in the Big 12. So, I mean, I guess I get it that there is one true champion, but without that conference championship game that last week, it's just another game, and everybody's watching those conference championship games, and Ohio State wins 58-0 in a championship game.
Here's the thing,
Championship game,
too.
and they jump up in there.
It is just another game, but this year could be different if you
It
have
could
an
be.
undefeated team
And
winning the Big 12.
if you have an undefeated team and a 10-1 team playing each other the last week, yeah,
That can
That's
change.
true.
That can change the view of the playoff committee, especially with the way Oklahoma has played lately. I mean, I think they have a really good
if that
chance
was
to beat
the
Oklahoma
case
State.
and it was Oklahoma against Oklahoma State the last week, let's just say
That's what it is.
Let's just say Notre Dame was at 4, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are at 5 and 6. Does the winner of that game jump them?
I think so. I don't think a one-loss team will, considering Notre Dame's one loss is Clemson. I don't think a one-loss Big 12 team will jump Notre Dame.
But they'd win the conference championship, not in the conference championship game.
Yeah.
But they would win the conference championship.
But if you have two teams at 11-1,
It would have to be like
And
one of
then-
them beat the other one 50-0 or something.
yeah, it would have to be huge. I don't see them jumping in Notre Dame, who could potentially be 11-1, with their one loss being to the top team in the country if
On the road
Clemson-
by 2 points.
if
Yeah.
Clemson wins out. So,
Uh,
but there's so many. That's the thing. I just don't know what's gonna happen.
that's mine and yours opinion,
Exactly.
not the committee. So
Yeah. This is why we're not on the committee. Maybe we should be.
We
Bring
should
two
be.
average guys in, and we'll be on the committee. We'll make some decisions. We'll put our
we'll
opinions
come
out.
up there with Condoleezza
I'll sit next to
Tom
the
and-
Rice lady.
and Barry Alvarez and
I think they have a tough job this week. I think this, by far, this year. I mean, it's only the second year for the college football playoff. This year, I think the top 8 teams in the country are all gonna have. There's gonna be a couple undefeateds. I think probably 1 or 2 undefeated teams. I don't think there's gonna be more than 2. And I think you're gonna have a very big plea to go for 8-team playoff next year, because I think there's gonna be so many teams deserving as
yeah.
far as their schedule.
I don't know if they'll do it that fast, but
But
maybe,
there's going to be coaches and schools are going to want it.
well after
I don't
last
think
year
they're going to do
even-
it. Last year, there's only 2 teams on the outside looking in. I think last year, TCU and Baylor.
Yeah, that's true.
The only 2 teams. But the Big 12 screwed the conference over by not having a championship team. If they had a championship game, boom,
Screwed
one of
them-
those teams was
and they also screwed themselves over by saying there's going to be one true champion,
hmm
and then
There wasn't one true champion.
their Big 12 commissioner said they were co-champs.
Yeah.
No, you can't roll that way.
No.
One team beat the other one. They're in first place.
Yeah, so it's tough for the Big 12, but when you got no championship game, it's going to hurt you. Like you said, they weigh heavily on those championship games. And right now, if you look at the Power 5, the 4 power conferences that have a chance, and the one that doesn't is Pac-12.
That's why I
Notre
said.
Dame, it sucks for them because they're going to be on the outside looking in.
That's why I said I think there should be an 18 playoff where the Power 5 conferences, each conference champion makes it in.
Yeah.
You make your conference champion, you win your conference championship, you're in, and then they take the next 3 highest, based off of some committee's opinion.
Yes and no, but at the same time, like this year with the Pac-12, you're going to have 2 or 3 lost teams playing each other in the Pac-12. How do you put one of them
in every other sport, college basketball, and I'm not trying to stray away from anything, but college basketball, college hockey, college baseball, you win your conference championship, you get to go to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And that would essentially be like the top 8.
Yeah,
You win your conference championship and you get to go
I
in.
get it.
There's teams that are under 500 that make it into the college basketball tournament, that make it in the college baseball tournament.
I get it.
But,
Less teams though. When you're looking at 8 teams compared to 64.
oh yeah, I know.
But I mean,
know.
it'll
And
be
college hockey
interesting.
has 16, but there's a
And
lot less college hockey teams than.
And they're
Other sports.
they might have to make some changes. They might look to an 8 team. I don't think they will. I don't think they ever want to. But after this season, you're going to look at a lot of teams that are going to be 11-1 on the outside instead of on the inside of that playoff picture, and you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 undefeated teams. I think it's going to be interesting. This year is crazy. It's nuts. I just you don't know what's going to happen.
It's insane. Every week there's something crazier about our picks.
We picked 6 games, and each of us got 2 wins. I got the Oklahoma game. We both got Houston, and then you got the Florida State game. So I mean,
And
we're like, oh, there's
If
no other
Florida
games.
State was losing by 10 points, they won by 17, but they were losing by 10. Houston was losing by 20 points in the fourth quarter, and they scored 21 points and won.
We're pretty much done picking games. We're really worrying about our record right now because we both suck at picking games. But that's because college football just it throws different things at you, and I think this has been one of the most exciting years to watch in a long time
It's been really fun.
because there's been a lot of teams you just don't see playing as well as they are right now.
I'll tell you
It's-
what, Michigan State's really kicking themselves for losing that game in Nebraska last week because after the chaos that went on yesterday, they would be sitting
they'd be
right
top
up
4.
in here.
But,
They would probably actually be in the top 4.
I think they would, but I also think if Nebraska beats Iowa, that's going to help Michigan State and push them up the ladder if they can.
that'll help
if they
Michigan
can-
State more than one way. It would bump
Here.
Iowa out, and it would help their resume, saying like,
Not only would it bump Iowa out, but it bumps if they beat Ohio State. I think they might get bumped into that. They might be a one-loss team that's going to be in the playoff picture because if they'll go to the championship game to play Iowa, and if Nebraska beat Iowa, they beat Iowa, they're going to be in.
yeah.
They could be a one-loss team that makes it into the playoff picture, but a lot needs to happen. They got to win this weekend, and then they got to beat Penn State, and then they got to beat Iowa in the championship game. I mean, there's just so many things. So we can say this now, but next
we
week
can sit here and
we're gonna have
talk all
totally
day
different
about
things.
what can happen, but there's still 2 weeks of regular season games and a conference championship game to the point where number 23 North Carolina in the college football playoff poll right now
Mhm.
could be in the top 4.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that they would necessarily will.
they are. They are on the
Anything
AP.
could happen.
They're number 4 in the AP.
I said North Carolina.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking Oklahoma State. But North Carolina jumped in the top 10.
Sitting at, they did in the AP
In
poll,
the
but
AP.
they were also like they were in the top 15
Yeah,
or
I think
something
so.
in the AP
They're at
poll.
least in the top 20.
They're only 23rd in the college football.
So
We'll see
here's
what they end up this week.
so let's look at some of the big games this weekend. So really, we say right now there's only 4 games.
There's
this weekend to
actually
look
some
at.
pretty decent games, top 25 matchups, but none of them are going to affect
not in the playoff picture.
They might affect the playoff picture as far as like where teams are going to be ranked, but
Yeah.
the games themselves are not going to be playoff worthy teams.
Yeah, so we got TCU going to Oklahoma. That's a big game for both teams because both teams need to win. TCU still has an outside chance, but that's if Oklahoma State
Depends
loses.
on Boykin's return. He
Yeah.
didn't come back. I don't think he came back in the game.
I think
They only beat Kansas by 6 points. It was tied at halftime. Kansas hasn't won a game in like 3 seasons.
they're 0-10 right now.
They haven't won a game in like 2 years.
Stick to basketball, Kansas. I take OU in that game. I think Oklahoma's going to beat TCU. I think they're going to
Totally
get their
agree.
second
After
loss.
watching Oklahoma against Baylor last night, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. Depending on Boykin and if he's back, if he's
But
okay.
But even with that, they don't have their top wide receiver. He's
No.
out for the season.
Out for the season.
And we've been saying it all year. Baylor and TCU, they're 2 of the exact same teams. High-powered offense.
No.
They score a lot of points, but they haven't been scoring a lot of points the last couple weeks. And you got a team like Oklahoma State and Oklahoma who have a defense.
Yep, you got to be able to stop somebody.
They have a defense and they have an offense. So I think Oklahoma wins that game. I think it's going to be close, though. I don't think it's going to be decisive, but I think it's going to be a really close game. Baylor goes to Oklahoma State. So you got the Bears taking on the Cowboys. Cowboys got guns. Bears got claws. Who's gonna
I
win?
certainly hope that Oklahoma State wins, and that Oklahoma wins for that matter, because I want those two teams to play the last game of the season with the Big 12 championship on the line. It would essentially be a conference championship game.
And it'd be a playoff contender game.
Exactly.
Potentially.
I would certainly think that it would, yeah.
I'm taking the Cowboys. I think Baylor's going to lose again. 'Cause-
Like I've said before,
No,
since Nebraska left the Big 12, my favorite team in the Big 12 has been Oklahoma State. I'm not going to pick against them. I don't like Texas. I don't like any teams from Texas, so I'm going to take Oklahoma
so he's
State.
going north of the border of Texas, and he's going to Oklahoma State. All right, then we got Michigan State at Ohio State. This is at Ohio State.
I don't know, man.
This is a tough game to pick.
Is that a night game? We got to look it up.
Yeah, it's game day.
Is it for sure?
College game day. Full show.
Well, okay.
Look at the Facebook page. Put a
That
picture.
was-
Put a picture of Urban Meyer.
That was game day last year at Michigan State, and Michigan State rolled them up.
And it's game day this year at Ohio State, same game, and this is huge implications on the playoff picture. and the Big Ten's future of getting into playoff. Who you got?
Unfortunately, Ohio State plays well on big stage at night in prime time.
You pick Ohio State.
I don't think that they're gonna win big, but I think they're gonna win. They haven't beat anybody big.
No, and I think this is their toughest game all year.
And I knew you were gonna pick Michigan State, so that was one.
This is their toughest game all year. Not that Michigan State's not a bad team.
It would be.
We beat them because we step a step. We had our best game of the season for sure, but I still think Connor Cook is gonna come out.
He got hurt and he didn't come back, so I don't know.
Their job in that game, to me, is going to be stopping Ezekiel Elliott. If they can stop Elliott in that game, JT Barrett is still going to be your starter.
And one of the reasons why I kind of decided to go OSU, I don't like Ohio State by any means, but Amani Cross ran pretty well against Michigan State, and Ezekiel Elliott's kind of a power running back like that.
Yeah.
I feel like he could run for quite a few yards. And
he could. I think it's going to be a good game. I want Michigan State to win, so I'm picking them. You don't want Ohio State to win.
If Michigan State wins that game, things would just be crazy.
Well,
I don't even know what the rankings would look like after that.
But then they're going to play.
So that would be fun. I almost actually should pick them.
Well, they're still going to play Iowa in the Big Ten Championship, but Iowa is going to have one loss at that time. Sorry, Jason.
We'll see.
So not really a huge game.
I'm not getting cocky about it.
But once again, potentially could be a big game because it is Notre Dame Boston College. This is always a good game. Boston College always comes out. They play some of their best games every season against Notre Dame. This game is at Fenway too. So this is in Boston at Fenway. It's going to be a pretty even matchup as far as fans, I think. I don't think anyone has the home field advantage here.
Interesting to see what the weather situation will be like up there, because that could affect things.
This is tough.
Notre Dame just didn't have quite the game that I thought they would yesterday. It's kind of... I know they have a little bit of a lull before Stanford with Wake Forest and then Boston College, but Fuller had 3 catches for 37 yards.
Yeah.
He had 100 yards in the first 5 minutes of the game.
And Kaiser didn't throw for much. I mean, he didn't throw for much.
He threw for 111 yards. I know that they didn't really need to throw. I mean, they had that freshman Adams or whatever rush for 140-some yards.
Yeah.
And Kaiser did rush for a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I still think you pick first.
I think Notre Dame wins.
I think Notre Dame wins too.
And I think they're going to win decisively. The reason why I think Notre Dame wins is because they know they have to win, and they have to win big this week, and they have to win big next week.
That's true.
To show the committee that we're legit. If we get to the playoff, we're not going to get rolled over by a team like we did a few years ago when we got to the championship game.
That's true.
They want to make their mark, and I think Kaiser is a Heisman contender right now.
Okay.
He is a hell of a good quarterback, a lot better than, for a backup QB, a lot better than anyone ever expected him coming off the bench and playing as well as he has. Now he has Fuller. He's had Prosise most of the season. Prosise out. Adams is a hell of a good running back as a backup. So Notre Dame's doing everything right as far as who they have on the field, but they have to win big the next 2 weeks to get in the playoff picture.
The good thing for them is that, like Ohio State last year, Ohio State had depth to the point where they had injuries in key positions where guys stepped in and almost were better than the original starters.
Yeah.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's kind of that same type of fit. Starting quarterback, starting running back, they've had so many injuries, and they're still alive and kicking, if not better.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big. I mean, depth like that is hard to come by, and that's pretty nice.
So those are only 4 games we're talking about this week. So let's talk about Heisman real quick, and then we'll talk about what we think the college football playoff poll is going to look like. We'll talk about our top 11 teams in the college football playoff. That's still all of those teams still have a shot to get into the playoff picture, depending on everything that happens in the next 3 weeks. So for the Heisman, we talked about it. We think Ezekiel Elliott is in there. We think Henry, as of now, both those guys are still in there. Fournette, I think you're done. I'm sorry, bud. Had a good year, but the last 2 games, I think you're done.
Maybe a slight chance, depending on what happens from here on out.
I'd be surprised. Boykin, I think you're done. He threw 4 picks against Oklahoma State.
And then he got hurt.
And he got hurt last week. I think you're done. You're a good quarterback, but I don't think you're going to have a chance to go to the Heisman race. But I'm not the one picking the Heisman contenders. Deshaun Watson for Clemson, dude, you're still in it. You're still trucking.
Their first place. He's
First
the quarterback
place.
on the number one team in the country.
You're the best quarterback on the best team in the country. And I think you're the best quarterback in the game next to my number 4, Deshaun Kaiser, who I think you could have 2 Deshaun's in the Heisman race with Kaiser and Watson. And I think both those guys have a really good shot, and I think it's going to be a close race. I think a quarterback's going to win it, but it depends on how Henry and Elliott do.
I see Henry and Watson there for sure. I don't know that they're going to take very many guys to the Heisman ceremony this year.
Yeah, we usually
It's
say
somewhere
more than
between
once.
3 and 5.
Yep.
I don't know that I see it more than 3.
But if Notre Dame loses, Kaiser's not going to go.
Exactly. And that's the funny thing is there's still some weeks of football left that this could be completely opposite, and then what do you do for the Heisman?
Well, and you look at Oklahoma State's quarterback. I mean, he still has a shot.
I don't really know much about
He's
him.
had a decent year. He's got a shot to get in there as well. Iowa, I don't even know who their best player is.
Bettier's their quarterback, but I don't know what type of season he's had. I haven't really watched him much.
They don't win games with their offense.
True.
I just don't know. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. Florida, I mean, I don't know. I hate Florida. I don't want to talk about him. Connor Cook was potentially a Heisman contender at the beginning of the year, but he's faded out big time.
He got hurt
And
yesterday.
we even said at the beginning of the season, he's not even a captain on his team, but he's led that team to a good season this year. North Carolina, I don't even know anything about North Carolina. All I know is they keep
I haven't
winning.
watched him play once.
I just know they keep winning. And I know they're going to play.
They lost to South Carolina on Thursday night, first week of the season.
And I remember
It was
that
the
game.
first college football game of the year.
That was the
North
only game I
Carolina
watched.
and South Carolina.
Yep.
They lost, and that's all I know about them. They've won every game since.
So I think the Heisman is still wide open. You still have a lot of players potentially, depending on what happens the next 3 weeks. You have a lot of different things that can happen with the Heisman race as well. So that could be fun. College football playoff. So we talked about it. I wrote down my top 10.
I
and
pretty much.
He added number 11.
I pretty much agreed with you, except I added number 11 now.
So we got Clemson at number 1 still. I don't think top 4 or top 3 are going to change. I think you're still going to have Clemson. I think you're going to have Bama. I think you're going to have Ohio State. Surprise sleeper, number 4. I'm throwing in Oklahoma State.
Could happen this week.
That's a huge jump.
Which,
But it can happen.
I mean, I could see it happening, but they came from behind to win, so I don't. I know they played at Iowa State. Iowa State kind of had the mindset that Nebraska did last week
And
against
at
Michigan State.
Ames is not always easy to play.
Just like Lincoln.
Nebraska has lost
nothing.
in Ames.
Yes, this is true, but
When we're
nothing.
good.
I mean, when you're at a point like that in your season, when you're 3-6 or whatever, and you're just basically putting everything on the line
Play your
because
ass off.
yeah, you're playing an undefeated team. Yeah, you want to beat them. That'd be awesome. That would be the best feeling of the season. That'd be like better than a bowl victory. So yeah.
But I think our 4 and 5 can flip. Notre Dame, Oklahoma State. It's going to be one of those two
yeah,
at number
it's
4.
close.
Whoever's not at number 4 is going to be at number 5. But we have Oklahoma State, then Notre Dame. Sorry, Notre Dame fans out there. Iowa at number 6, Oklahoma at number 7, Florida, North Carolina. I think North Carolina is going to, as crazy as it sounds, they were 23?
They were 23.
They got to jump 14 spots, but here's the real. You look at the big picture for the ACC. North Carolina is going to the championship game against Clemson. How do you not have them in the top 10? That is why I put them at number 8, at number 9, because they have a legit chance to make the playoffs.
Exactly.
Not the committee puts them at 23 though.
Teams in the top. What we have written down are teams that we consider to be still playoff eligible or worthy. If you have 2 losses, like Utah was number 10, they lost. They're done.
Stanford's done.
Done.
LSU's done.
Michigan's
done.
North Carolina has 1 loss with Clemson potentially in an ACC championship game. They should be considered for playoff.
So we got them at 9. We got Michigan State at 10. Michigan State still has a legit chance. It all depends on what happens against Ohio State. And it depends on Iowa versus Nebraska. Nebraska can ruin another team's season, and they can help Michigan State, the team they beat, if they beat Iowa. So
Yeah, they want Nebraska to keep winning.
it's going to be crazy. So then we got Houston at number 11, because like we said, Houston can squeak in, but
They're undefeated. I doubt it.
A
But
lot needs to happen ahead of them. I still don't think they're going to squeak in, but they're going to get a hell of a good bowl game if they win out. And win the
they'll
championship
be
game.
the highest of the non-Power 5, so they'll go to a New Year's Six bowl.
Yep. And well
Probably
deserved.
play the lowest seed and whatever.
Yeah. But
it'll still be a good game.
Those are our top 11. Once again, we're going to be back on Tuesday. We'll do another show Tuesday night once those college football playoff rankings come out.
For sure.
And we might be happy, we might be upset, or hey, we might do pretty good in our top 10.
It's got to look pretty close to that. There might be a couple flip-flops or...
And we talked about it a little bit before the show, too. When you have the AP poll, once the AP starts to come out towards the end of the season, typically that's not too far off from the college football rankings.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, why is the AP going to be way far off from what they think is going to be
and the
top
coaches
rankings?
as well. The coaches was almost identical.
The coach poll. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to it. I know you are. Anybody that watches the show, we know you're looking forward to it.
I know Ryan is. I know Jason is.
Purdue, Jason, Notre Dame,
teams
Iowa,
in the top
still
5.
hanging on.
Of course, they're excited about it. That'd be fun.
Be a good time. That's all we got for today, unless you can think of anything else.
I can think of something. We didn't talk about Nebraska.
Nebraska won.
I was thinking about that halfway through, and I was like, we got to talk about Nebraska.
So Nebraska, they beat Rutgers. Whoop-de-frickin-do Rutgers, but Nebraska looked pretty good.
They had a very, very good first quarter.
21-0.
21-0. We couldn't do anything wrong, and they couldn't do anything right. And then
Tommy threw 3 picks.
Then Tommy decided he was going to just... I know the one scramble, long touchdown he threw to Alonzo Moore was kind of kind of a toss-up play, even though he was wide open for a long time.
I was going to say, I kind of screwed that because he was wide open in the end zone.
He was, but after that, man, I don't know what he was doing. And I did get to watch most of the game. I missed the beginning of the second half, which I hate more than anything. But and of course they scored when I wasn't watching.
Yep.
Because when I'm watching, we win. We do well. But no, we were awesome in the first quarter, and then a little bit of our defense was pretty good.
That was
we won 31-14. Their 2 touchdowns were on 2 Tommy picks. One took them back to maybe the 5-yard line, and then the other one they were in good field position.
And we had 6 sacks. The last time we had more than 2 sacks in the game was against Southern Alabama. So we had 6 sacks last night. We blitzed the hell out of.
We were blitzing like crazy, and we actually got some pressure. It was weird to see because I haven't seen that many guys in the backfield.
Guess what we need to do against Iowa? Blitz.
Yeah.
Their offense is not that powerful. They win more of their games by defense than anything else. If we blitz against Iowa, I think we're gonna do pretty well. Now it's gonna be a good game, but I think we need to blitz just
the
like
good
we did
thing
against
is
Rutgers.
Nebraska got a week off.
Mm-hmm.
So
watch film.
We'll play the following Thursday, so they don't technically get 2 weeks off. Or following Friday, I'm sorry. They get about 2 weeks off.
Almost a full 2 weeks.
Yeah, almost a full 2 weeks. But that'll be nice to get some guys rested up. And I know Tommy was kind of dealing with.
He got a little beat up.
Yeah, he got a little beat up last night. But it was a decent game. I know for this season it was a pretty good game.
Hey, we have a chance to go 6-6 and make a bowl game. If we go 6-6 and make a bowl game, I'm happy about the season because I expected a 7-5 out of Mike Riley the first year. If we go 6-6, not far off. And if we beat 2 top 10 teams, that's huge too for Nebraska because we all know who could not do that as a coach. In Bo Pelini,
did you see the clip
went kind of nuts at the refs.
You saw that?
Penn State. So,
if you haven't seen it, Matt will post it,
yes.
Or you should anyway.
Bo Pelini went nuts.
Youngstown State on the refs during the North Dakota State game. I don't even know what was going on. I know there was 30 seconds left in the game, and they were down by 3. So I'm guessing that. And they were playing North Dakota State, which is one of the best teams in the FCS. So that was a pretty big game, but I don't know. It was fun.
Yeah, Alex Bo. It's pretty interesting. It's fun to watch, especially if anyone hates Bo, which I do not. But it's still fun to watch.
It's just funny.
It's still fun to watch either way. So, but yeah. So go Big Red as usual. Thanks for tuning in.
They're off this week, but we'll sit back and watch some mayhem transpire this weekend.
Yeah.
Like it has been every week.
And once again, these are just our opinions. See you on Tuesday.